Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a completely forgotten, absolutely wild chapter of motorsport history. We're heading to Paraguay in the 1970s and 80s to uncover a homegrown racing category that was blindingly fast and, as you're going to see, incredibly dangerous. So let's just get right into it. 190. That is the staggering speed in kilometers per hour that these vehicles were hitting on the straightaways. Now, okay, maybe that doesn't sound like a modern Formula One record to you, but when you realize these were entirely DIY, artisanal machines literally built in local backyards and garages, yeah, 190 kilometers per hour suddenly sounds way less like a fun thrill ride and a whole lot more like a terrifying leap of faith. Just look at the reality of this starting grid at the Autodromo Aratiri. It's gritty, it's high-octane, you can practically smell the exhaust and feel the raw energy pouring off the tarmac. Right? This wasn't about multi-million-dollar corporate engineering facilities. No, this was all about local passion, rubber meeting the asphalt, and just absolute pure fearlessness.
Section 1. Birth of Formula Nacional, Paraguay's DIY racing dream.
The vibe here was entirely unique. You've got pit crews hanging out, completely casual, shirtless, in the blazing heat, essentially building race cars from scratch. These machines were 100% artisanal, built purely by the sweat, ingenuity, and sheer willpower of local pilots and mechanics. There were absolutely no wind tunnels here, zero computer simulations, just a deep, intuitive understanding of mechanics and a massive need for speed.
So what exactly were these cars? Well, originally they called it Formula 5. The basic idea of Formula Nacional was taking standard, everyday street cars and violently stripping them down. They ditched those heavy original bodies entirely and swapped them out for these insanely light aerodynamic shells. They basically transformed everyday commuters into single-seater monopostos. And this drastic weight reduction created a power-to-weight ratio that was, honestly, absolutely terrifying.
Section 2. Artisanal machines, raw speed, engineering on the edge.
I absolutely love the contrast here. It's just fascinating. On one side, a car might be decked out in this professional big league Marlboro branding, looking like a totally serious international racing machine. But then, right next door in the pits, you'd find a barefoot, shirtless mechanic piecing a vehicle together in the sweltering Paraguayan heat. It's just this bizarre, awesome blend of high-end corporate ambition rubbing shoulders with raw, grassroots mechanics.
And under the hood, total Frankenstein engineering. We're talking about powertrain mashups that really shouldn't make sense, but somehow they did. You had mechanics tearing apart Fiat engines and literally slapping them together with Volkswagen Fusca gearboxes, or vice versa. And to keep these mismatched beasts from just melting down on the track, they rigged up these side-mounted cooling systems. Did it totally ruin the precious aerodynamics of those lightweight shells? For sure. But hey, it was the only way to keep the engines alive during a grueling race.
Now, let's take a peek inside the cockpit. The setup was famously known as puro piloto, pure pilot, and they meant it. You got a simple seat, a steering wheel, some seatbelts, and maybe a couple of dials if you were lucky. That's the whole shebang, absolutely zero comforts. And, way more importantly, virtually zero structural safety measures by any modern standard. Surviving a race relied entirely, 100%, on the raw skill and lightning-fast reflexes of the driver. The dark reality of this cockpit design was an open secret. There was actually a saying, an accident meant going straight to St. Peter. And you know why? Because of one absolutely fatal design flaw. To save space and balance the weight, they placed the fuel tank immediately behind the driver's back, literally right behind them. Think about that for a second. If you crashed, or if somebody rear-ended you, you were sitting inches in front of a live bomb. Every single race was a massive roll of the dice.
Section 3. The Golden Era, Formula One Dreams.
To really get the arc of this sport, we need to quickly check the timeline. The whole thing kicked off on May 24, 1970, when they inaugurated the Autodromo Aratiri in Capiata, which is a track now known as Ruben Dumont. By 1979, Formula Nacional officially launched its golden era, running strong and wildly popular for 8 thrilling years. But, as we're about to see, 1987 brought a really abrupt and super tragic end to this timeline.
But man, during those golden years, the popularity was just off the charts. The grandstands were absolutely packed every weekend. This was no longer just a local hobby. It was a major event pulling in huge corporate backing. You had massive Shell sponsorship banners towering over the track, which was a big deal partnership brought in by the prominent local Patino family. The sport was absolutely thriving.
And the talent pool driving these things was genuinely impressive. You had beloved veteran drivers, local legends like Carlos Tito Maya going head-to-head with young, hungry prodigies like Danny Candia. Candia actually remains the only Paraguayan pilot to ever test a Formula One car, which is incredible. The category even gained enough international prestige to host crossover races with the Argentine Formula 2 League right there on the same track.
Section 4, 1987, the tragic climax.
Obviously, this golden era couldn't last forever. Racing these fragile, highly combustible DIY machines in such tight, wheel-to-wheel proximity was always a terrifying reality. Now, by the late 80s, Formula Nacional was already starting to lose a bit of steam as Paraguayan rally racing started dominating the public's attention. But it wasn't a slow decline in popularity that killed the Monocastas. No, it was the devastating consequence of pushing those dangerous engineering limits just one step too far.
The absolute breaking point came in November of 1987. During a race, that beloved veteran driver we just talked about, Carlos Tito Gonzalez Maya Knopfelmacher, was involved in a devastating accident. It's a really somber moment in the history of the country's motorsport, and honestly, it changed everything in an instant. The crucial takeaway here is understanding exactly how those DIY design flaws we discussed earlier directly led to this tragedy. During the heat of the race, Tito Maya's monoposto impacted the vehicle right in front of him. The sheer force caused his car to violently roll over onto the asphalt. And remember that exposed fuel tank sitting right behind the driver's seat? It instantly ruptured and erupted into a massive fireball. Tragically, Maya passed away hours later in the hospital from severe burns. The horrific, undeniable nature of that accident instantly woke everybody up to the reality of what they were doing out there. The racing category was immediately, permanently canceled. No more races. Today, out of all those roaring, handcrafted machines that used to captivate the grandstands, only a single surviving car remains. It just sits silently in Paraguay's classic car museum, kind of a ghost from this forgotten, wild era. Which leaves us with a pretty heavy thought to chew on. When we look back at the sheer ingenuity, the tight-knit community, and the absolute thrill of Formula Nacional, it is so easy to romanticize it all. It's an amazing story. But seeing exactly how it ended forces us to ask, does the pursuit of raw, DIY sporting passion ever actually justify the ultimate human cost? It's a tough question, but definitely an important one to carry with you. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time as we dive into another incredible piece of history.